And there you have it. There you have it. 237 days of genocide. Right now it's time to share this. Someone doesn't know that there's a genocide taking place in Tigray. And again, where is Tigray? North of Ethiopia, south of Eritrea, and east of the Sudan, and in the hearts of the Tigray people all over the planet. A big day today. It is a huge day today, and we're going to talk about what this day means. I need someone to go ahead and share this, because the Tigray military force has reclaimed, has taken their capital back from the Eritrean troops, the Ethiopian government, and the Amhara militia, and everyone who has participated and yielded widespread looting, rape, weaponized hunger and famine, lack of medical attention, water, basic necessities. They have endured 237 days of fleeing into the Sudan for safety. 237 days of young people being thrown over cliffs to their death. 237 days of civilians being shot down in the streets. 237 days of the world watching. 237 days of world governments and leaders and everyone issuing resolutions, issuing statements, issuing declarations that this should stop, this should yield. And while everyone was talking, the Tigray Defense Forces were fighting. It's a huge day because the Tigray Defense Forces have taken back the capital city of Mekelle. What I'm going to do is unpack this tonight, but what I'd like for everyone to do is to share this right now. It's a huge day, and what I like most about this is that while the people of Tigray were waiting for the world to come in and help them, the people of Tigray helped themselves. The people of Tigray did not experience the taking of Mekelle by foreign governments coming in saying that rape and looting and pillaging is wrong and we will come in and defend the people of Tigray. Actually, keeping in with the tradition of the Tigray and the Tigray people, they, with their defense forces, have come in and liberated their own capital city. With that said, I want to get an idea of what that means, and I want to say hello and good evening, salam and peace to Indele, KETOFM, and Maleti B. First of all, I want to just say that I haven't seen you two smiling like this in quite a while. I haven't seen the sense of accomplishment in the way that I'm just seeing what I'm looking at the both of you. I haven't seen this in 237 days. I've seen the frustration, the calling forth of who is going to stand up and defend the Tigray people from a foreign nation inside of a sovereign country, attacking citizens of said nation in conjunction with a government that is total polar opposite of what Ethiopia has stood for in the recent history. Let me start with Maleti first. Can you give us an update of what is taking place in Mekelle and what does it mean to you and the world? Welcome, Maleti. And I just want to open it up and hear from you.
Thank you, Brother Jeff. 237 days, and we can finally take a breath. We can finally take a deep breath. So what happened is I was at work and my phone is ringing off the hook and I'm getting all these text messages and, social media messages. And I'm like, something happened. And usually when that happens, we learn of something really horrific that happened in Tigray. So I'm in a meeting, I can't look at my phone and I'm hearing it ring and ring and ring. And I'm like, dear God, what am I going to hear when I get to my phone? Is it a family member? What is it? And I get to my phone and shockingly, I hear that TDF the Tigray Defense Forces have made it into Mekelle and taken back the capital city. Now, we have been hearing about successes over the past week, like a defeat here and a defeat there, and so many forces were defeated in this area and that area. And what happened is the Tigray Defense Forces launched what they called Operation Alula. Now, I have to tell you who Alula is, because what you hear a lot about with the Battle of Adwa is about Menelik, right? Menelik led these forces and defeated the Italians. Actually, it was Alula, the general, a really infamous general, who led that defeat against the Italians, because he never trusted the Italians. He slept with one eye open. He had spies watching them. So he saw them coming in and was able to alert Menelik and therefore lead that attack against the Italians. So the amazing fighters in TDF led an operation called Operation Alula. And the figures that I have, and we keep getting this information and, is being updated in real time. But the last figure that I have is in 10 days, the TDF killed 28,000 federal soldiers and Eritrean soldiers in 10 days. And they captured more than 6,000 prisoners of war. They downed that Air Force C-130 cargo plane, which was huge. The Ethiopian government tried to deny it and say that there was a technical issue with the plane. I'm like, yeah, that technical issue is called TDF. But they downed that plane. And since then, it's just been a series of victories to the point where they came in and took back the capital of Mekelle. All the regional leaders had left Monday evening, we hear now. So or Sunday evening, they had taken off and left the capital. And so most of the capital, Mekelle, and are now back in Addis Ababa. But this is the news we got. We were getting video from people on the ground in Tigray, celebrating, cheering. I talked to someone who said, we are in the streets. We're in the streets and we are celebrating. We haven't been outside in almost 8 months. People have been hiding, stuck in their homes, especially if they're girls, because they didn't want to come out and be raped by these vicious soldiers. So the word that we got was, we are outside and we are celebrating. They've saved us.
Wow, this is amazing news, and we're going to get deep into it. Again, everyone, 237 days of the Tigray people being left to certainly defend themselves. There was humanitarian aid that was coming into Tigray, but it was being denied the people that needed those particular humanitarian supplies, etc. We have seen tons of resolutions. We've seen great posturing. We've also experienced great silence from the African Union. It blows my mind that when I look around the world and I look at the African Union, it's silent in the midst of genocide, and African organizations are afraid to say genocide, let alone Tigray. The Tigray people with the Tigray Defense Forces have recaptured their own capital city. This is a city that Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, who is in partnership with a dictator, Isaias Afwerki of Eritrea, they've come together in an unholy alliance. And those of you who say that that is a stretch of imagination, you've got to remember Eritrea is a dictatorship. It is the North Korea of Africa, and they have never had an election in 30 years after the so-called liberation from the Derg or the committee. Isaias Afwerki created a committee and formed the exact same government that the people rose up, including the TPLF and others, to fight against. Ndele has been on the ground for 237 days. He has, along with Maleti, has crisscrossed the nation. Ndele, you've been in New York, you've been in LA, you've been in Seattle, you've been in Boston, you've been just everywhere, Washington, D.C., and you have been saying stop the genocide in Tigray. Today, I see a sense of not only accomplishment, but a sense of pride in your very being. Ndele, tell us what took place from your vantage point, what's going on, and what you would like for those who are watching this to know. And by the way, if you're watching this, we're asking you to share this right now. Ndele, KETO FM, what's going on inside of that head of yours right now?
Brother Jeff, thank you so much. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for what you have done yourself, Brother Jeff, for the past 237 days. You've been a voice to the voiceless, and your tireless of contribution to this historical moment is always be remembered. I think, Brother Jeff, you forgot to say future should be traveled to Mekelle too. You know, I've been everywhere. Now I'm gonna be in Mekelle soon. You know, so
Well,
God willing. So
let me say it like this, Ndele. I will be in Mekelle again.
see,
I've been to Mekelle. I've been to the monuments. As a matter of fact, there's this incredible sculpture of a baby breastfeeding from the breast of a woman that was bombed. So this is not a new story for the people of Tigray, the Tagaru people. I can show you that there's an actual it's kind of like a sculptured park where you can see the images of bombings and hope, because the children, the way I interpret this child is being breastfed through the pain of the Tagaru people, and you're seeing today that that child would be an adult and would be a liberator of the Tagaru people. It's written right there in the history of the Tagaru people. And again, I'm looking forward to revisiting Mekelle and the capital of the Tagaru people. In Delhi, the only difference is this time we're going to go together.
you know, so that's also even history. So I think somebody has to take a picture. Maybe Meleti will take us a picture. So, but you know, let me come back to the serious point. I mean, you know, just like Meleti said, you know, as soon as people hear it, and some of them trying to tell me, and some trying to confirm, you know, and so on. You know, I get another call even from elected official of this country. You know, if this is what we hearing is something true, but you know, I'm not like, you know, I'm in a state of shock myself. You know, just even to believe, because the way the situation was horrific. You know, with this atrocity taking place, we know what is going on in Tigray, and then all of us a sudden, and there's a gap. So I think this is just like you said earlier, Brother Jeff. This is, you know, our hats is off to, you know, to Tigrayan people and the TDF in the ground. I mean, we just, you know, what we just did, you know, we did not face any harsh. We did not sleep outside in the mountain, or, you know, we just ate one day, or we just a bullet fly over our head or anything like that, or you know, maybe a hyena is coming, you know, you know, the rural area in Tigray. So we did not face those scary moments, and people can just try to survive. But you know, ours, you know, history will count. But in the meantime, I like to say, you know, to the Tigrayans in the ground, for the TDF and the whole general public in Tigray, you know, I commend them for what they have done. Like you said, you know, the outside world, you know, have said, you know, we condone, we're saying this, you know, just, you know, diplomatic talk, and then to the action, you know, it was not into, you know, the leverage that we wanted. You know, Meleti can you know, can help me on the code. You know, our late, I'm sorry, the other person I'll mention, but the mayor, Denver Mayor Wellington Webb said it. You know, if it was, you know, other European country or some others, you know, NATO will be, or something will be there. But, you know, for the Africans, because of the Tagaru, you know, the past administration also. So I think that plays a role, but I don't want to be more political correct, but this is a great moment. I wanted to applaud the Tigrayan people, the Tigrayan, our brothers and sisters, just to be free, just like Meleti said. You know, some of them, they were not even come out in the streets, and our family tell us, you know, they were hiding in the mountains, or you know, the moms, the aunts, and everybody we talked to on the phone, they telling us. But right now, they enjoying it. So hopefully we'll reach out to them in a couple of days and so on. But in the meantime, Brother Jeff, this is shocking. Of course, like 221 days, when me and you aired the first show together, if you did, I do remember how we discussed this issue. Especially, we were shocked how the atrocity took place by especially bringing the neighboring Amharic militants and as well as the Eritrean troops. But today, it's just, I would like to use the Prime Minister phrase, Duke I mean, the TDF is the one who makes them Duke now, because in this Duke will not come back again. So it goes vice versa. So I think it's very shameful for a country considered to be as Ethiopia has a huge history by using the Tigrayan history, but at the same time, the Prime Minister makes him fool out of himself, making 109 population of Ethiopia making fool out of themselves too, leaving out 10 million of Tigrayans. I know military obviously say, I think I triggered you, so go ahead.
Jump in there, Meleti. Jump in there.
I'm dying to get in because there's so many good points, so many things to talk about too. But I just want to say that what the Ethiopian government kept saying was African solutions for African problems. So whenever the West would say you've ethnically cleansed all of Western Tigray, they say African solutions for African problems. When they said the people of Tigray are starving, 5 million people are at risk for starvation. And then it turned into people are in famine. The people of Tigray are in famine. And they said African solutions for African problems. They kept repeating that very offensively, as if they twisted Pan-Africanism as if it is not about the people, as if it's about protecting the states in Africa. That's not what Pan-Africanism is. It's about empowering the people. But what I wanted to say is there was an African solution to this, and it took the everyday Tigrayan getting up to come out and fight. I'm not talking about, when you talk about Tigray Defense Forces, people get confused. And they said, well, where have they been? Someone actually asked me today, well, where have they been up until now? I said, they've been fighting. And by the way, the roles grew and grew. People kept joining the Tigrayan Defense Forces because they had no choice. I'm not talking about rugged fighters, or like on the Ethiopian side, you have people joining because they needed a paycheck. There's no work in Ethiopia. And so joining the military was a paycheck. For Tigrayans though, I'm talking about academics. I'm talking about teachers, lawyers, accountants, thinkers. There was an award-winning playwright
a model.
Right, who quit and joined the Tigrayan Defense Forces. Models. I'm talking about Tigrayan models. These women who society would joke about spending all day in the mirror and looked at them as if they were a joke, joined Tigray Defense Forces to fight. Everyone had to fight because, listen, you can't rape my mother and not expect me to want to fight back. You can't rape my sister. You can't rape children. You can't starve people out. You can't take my boys, shoot them and throw them over a cliff. You can't shoot elderly men who are wearing gabis praying. You can't do that and not expect every single person to revolt. And what you saw was an African solution to an African problem. And that was the Tagaru people uniting and fighting back.
I've got two questions for you, Melete. And one, I want to have you give us a history of women who have been staunch fighters as Tagaru fighters. Like this isn't a situation where it was just the men. There's a long history of women soldiers who fought. They fought the Derg. They fought Haile Selassie. They fought everyone has risen up and have come against the Tagaru people, not only in recent history, but in days past. As a matter of fact, Melete, you traveled to Sudan with one of those women. Can you talk a little bit about the fierce fighting energy and accomplishments that accompany a moment like this from the woman perspective?
Absolutely. So women have had a long history of fighting. I remember my mom telling me stories that her grandparents told her, like when the Italians invaded, or different people. It wasn't just Italians, the Egyptians, different people have tried to come in and colonize. And they always come in from the north. And who's in the north? Tagaru. So we're always the first line of defense. But I remember stories of how the women used to fight with berbere. If you know what berbere is, it's a spice. that you put in food. And they would use that berbere and to throw it into soldiers' eyes to get away and not be, not be raped, not be attacked or whatever. And so women have had a long history. When I went to Sudan, I traveled with a woman named Mentuab. Mentuab was during the Derg, actually, they weren't actively enlisting women or girls. She was a teenager at the time, probably 18 or 19 years old, somewhere around there. And her and a bunch of friends wanted to join. And the soldiers told them, no, you have to go back. So they was all men at this point. And she said, no, we want to fight. We see what's happening. We're targets as well. We can fight. We want to come help. Even if all we do is carry stuff, even if all we do is, they were trying to make a case for being able to come out and fight. And she said, after a lot of like convincing, initially, actually, they kept being told no. And Mentuab said, okay, all right, TPLF, if you won't let us join you, we're going to join EPLF. So we're going to go join on that side. But either way, we're going to join. And when they realized that these women were not playing, they allowed them to join. And so her stories are amazing. The things that they saw. I mean, she was telling me stories about, just the common struggles, like how they would, the women, like you would get your period, but you're in the mountains, you're fighting, and you don't have a change of clothing. You don't have any way to kind of handle that. She said it would get to a point where their underwear would get so hard it would cut their legs from menstruating while they're out there. I mean, that's literally what they went through. But then she also told me about how the male soldiers would wash their underwear and would help, like, you would wash and do laundry, whatever, in the lakes and the rivers and stuff, and how they worked together. But she was one of the first women to be able to join when they fought the Derg. And so women have a long history, both formally and informally, in helping. And this war in particular is being fought on the bodies of women and girls. So what happens is these weak soldiers go out and they have defeats in the battlefront, and then they come back and they take it out on civilians, and especially on women. I mean, the youngest rape victim is 4 years old, and the oldest rape victim on record is 89 years old. I heard a story just the other day of a 70-year-old woman who was confronted by Eritrean soldiers in her home. And she said, please, we speak the same language. You could be my kids. We speak the same language. And they still raped her. And she screamed, and her neighbor heard, who's 65, and came over, and they raped her as well. And so this war was being fought on their bodies. And so it's no surprise to me that there were these young former models, known models, who shed everything and went out into the field to fight.
Wow. With that being said, 237 days, a big day today. The Tigray Defense Forces have taken and recaptured their very own capital from the government that used to be theirs, who went in partnership with the Eritrean government to attack their very own people. I want to talk a little bit broader and ask the question, where are the Eritrean troops? Because we had this conversation on this platform for many days and said that the reason Abiy Ahmed needed Eritrean troops because he could never defeat the Tigray people or subdue his own nation with his own federal troops. It's going to be hard for you to fight with, and it just sounds like the Amhara militia and yourself. You need some backup. Maybe that's the Eritrean troops, because the Oromia people, they are at odds with the government and many of the other states. And so we predicted many months ago that the moment there are no Eritrean troops, you would see the fall immediately. Are Eritrean troops still in Ethiopia? And if so, what role are they playing?
Yeah, I think Eritrean. Okay. Yeah, go for it, Ndali.
Brother Jeff, like I said, 221 days when me and you started this show together, like when you invite me, that's the same thing that we discussed, and why the sovereign country doing in Ethiopia, especially in Tigray region. So this is a real thought. This is a real collaborated plan between Abiy and the Eritrean dictator. So this is a well planned. But when it backfired on them, and then they start bringing, anything in their disposal, and then guess who's laughing in the corner? Egypt is laughing. because now Meles, when he was in power, they were scared. They don't know what Ethiopia had, so they don't know. They're not even thinking how to military action. But now, the the president of Egypt is almost scoring all the Horn of Africa, signed a military agreement with Egypt. I mean, I'm sorry, with Djibouti. Djibouti never had an Egyptian leader visitor since Djibouti became an independent. So that shows you. Even they made a military sign with Kenya, Sudan. I'm talking about Egypt. See, they underestimate the whole Africa now. So that shows you how Abiy messed up. Not only just stabilizing the Tigray region, but the whole Horn of Africa. So that's why the United States and others was concerned. But still, even if they take it more seriously on Tigray, even for them, they were shocked. The Tigray turned around and taken over. So that shows you how the braveness of the Tigray resilience in a time of this difficulty. Having said that, where is the Eritreans now? Of course, they're, I don't want to say it in public, but, who knows what's next for TDF? Because there's three of them on the plate. So they decide to go after the Ethiopian Defense Force first, and then there's the Amara Mullet, and then the Eritrean. So I think they wanted to do based on their forces, phase by phase. So now when they take over Mekelle, I think that's another moral. I think the Eritreans will back up, but they will back up in some way. But I don't want to say it in public. But that's the next notion. When your question is where are they now, I think just like we heard the news today, that will remain to be told in a few weeks or so, because the next marching, we don't know what the TDF plans, the other military skirmish that they're going to do. But it's still like, what I'm getting now, they dismantled like a facility that was controlled by the NGOs trying to help the Tigray, even the refugees from Eritrea, even some of the equipments and vehicle for United Nations belongs to United Nations, because those Ethiopian troops and others, they wanted to destroy anything they see in their face, so they wanted to get away. They even, take vehicles to leave the Mekelle area, because Abiy deserted them technically, because he doesn't have enough cargo plane to rescue them anyway. So now they just flee by using private cars. They taking people away their taxis and Bajaj and others. And at the same time, they dismantling communication and others. And then the government, last night, I believe that's what I heard, hopefully we'll confirm it. They brought a plane to take all the monies from the local banks and some golds and others. So the government, that shows you they give up. They just don't want to admit, but they're just taking all that. So that shows you how the airport was very secured. Eventually, the TDF, when they march in, there's no, like a power vacuum. There was no skirmish with any other forces. So the Eritreans already know that, so they've been cut off. So they have to leave the Tigray area in some way. But eventually, in the military sense, Brother Jeff, you also know, but this has phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4. So the first one is just to liberate and make sure that the people are peaceful, and then eventually they will clean up in the surrounding area, including the Amara militants who took over some of the part of the land belongs to the Tigray region. Having said that, the international community, that's what we're waiting for, to let us know by tomorrow and see what we're going to hear from the American elected officials and others in European. But the Eritreans, they have not spoken officially, but they did make some statements, but it's not official.
Well, I can tell you, for those of you who are just tuning in, we want you to go ahead and share this. There's been 237 days of genocide. Yes, a genocide is taking place in Tigray. Where's Tigray? North of Ethiopia, south of Eritrea, east of the Sudan, and in the hearts of the Tigray people all throughout the world. The Tigray people have left the building. I believe that you are seeing the beginnings of a independent state based on the leadership, and I would say the misplaced leadership of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, who at this particular time, can you all, Maletti, can you give me an update on this election? Like in the midst of this internal strife with external assistance, it's been real quiet around the election results, what's going on. And I know those of you who have been watching me, you know I've been waiting to hear which one of the world leaders would be the first to come out and congratulate Abiy Ahmed on a victorious democratic election in the midst of genocide, in the midst of partnering with a foreign nation inside of his own very nation to attack his very own people, a nation that has not had an election, a leaning of Ethiopia towards the Soviet Union and perhaps China, but certainly away from any democratic process. Maletti, can you give me an update in terms of the election? We know the Oromo community, their political leadership has been incarcerated. Their voice has been silenced in essence, and they have been fighting as well. Give us an update on what you've been hearing about the election, and are we seeing the disintegration of Ethiopia as we know it?
Yes. Thank you for those questions. I want to add on to about where are the Eritreans? They're in Oromia. We know that there are some in Oromia. We're hearing reports of similar violence happening in that region now. We've been hearing it from various Oromo leaders and activists, you know, on Twitter and other places that there are Eritreans there. So we know that they're not completely gone, but the other answer is many of them have been killed. Many of their generals have been killed, and others probably have retreated at this point. And we know that as they were leaving Tigray, it's so interesting, like the way that you read some of these stories by international journalists, and they say things like the Ethiopian Defense Forces or Eritreans left Tigray. And I'm like, they didn't leave, they ran. They ran for their lives. But they were looting people as they went. There were reports from NGOs that cars were full of stuff as they were trying to leave. I also heard that they tried to rob a bank and that they were met by TDF forces outside of the bank. And so they weren't able to leave. So there's all this information that's still developing. But as far as the sham elections, I've been checking Abiy Ahmed's Twitter all day today, and he literally made one post. And they were actually two posts back to back. And the one post was how he renamed, he's so deceptive with his words, and he called it like a groundbreaking ceremony, as if he just built this new leadership academy, but it was actually an academy that was built and named after Meles Zenawi, a very prominent Tigrayan who made a lot of the strides that Ethiopia has and talks about. And Abiy Ahmed tried to make it seem like he created this place, but what he did was rename it. So he took Meles's name off of the building and put a new name on it and said, look what I created for you all. So that was one of his posts, was about the formal renaming. And the other one was how the world is applauding Ethiopia he said Ethiopia won in this last election. So there's been no quote unquote winner, but I mean, he was running against himself. So we know that he won. I mean, there's no two ways about that. 1/5 of the country either could not vote because they're in a war, in a genocide, or in some type of oppressive situation with government, by the Ethiopian government. Or there was no one on the ballot but Prosperity Party Abiy Ahmed. So you have 20% of the people who were essentially disenfranchised in that election, which has no results and, all of that. But what's interesting to me is to see how quickly Abiy Ahmed's circle is turning on him. So you're seeing people that were staunch supporters because they shared a common hate of Tigray now come out and say things because, as you know, he declared a unilateral ceasefire. Well, yeah, it's hard to keep fighting when all of your divisions have been destroyed, right? But he supposedly called for this unilateral ceasefire because the regional government advised him it was necessary as they ran out of Mekelle into Addis Ababa. I'm like, you can't even make this stuff up. It's just dumbfounding, the stories that they tell and try to gaslight you right before your eyes. But his circle is collapsing. It's collapsing around him. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens in the coming days and how this all unfolds. But and Dale may know better, but from what I heard last, the government of Tigray has not accepted his unilateral ceasefire because most of Tigray is still not free. I mean, there's a lot of Mekelle, Aksum, Adwa, Shere. We're hearing of all these places that have been liberated, but you still have the entire western part of Tigray. You still have the Irob communities, who are a minority ethnic group within a minority ethnic group, that have been constantly attacked by Eritrea and Isaias Afwerki. We still have no information about where they are in their liberation. So there's still a long way to go. And we heard that there were 2 fighter jets that landed in Bahar Dar, which means that, how are you claiming a ceasefire and you're dropping fighter jets in the next city over? You know what I mean? So there's still a lot of skepticism about what exactly is happening. The victory is a victory. You always celebrate freedom, but there's still a lot that could be coming. And Abiy Ahmed and definitely Isaias Afwerki, their evil has no bounds. And so I wouldn't be surprised if they do come in and drop bombs, which they did in Togoga. Last week we were talking about that. They dropped bombs on a city on Market Day. So I don't know that this is over. I do know that that Abiy has had been defeated substantially. And so I don't think that he's going to come back in and have some military victory, but I do see him coming back and dropping bombs or chemical weapons, because he's done it already, on the people, just as a form of punishment for rising up.
Well, you know that early on, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed had declared victory in Mekelle in 6 days, and he has to understand that the people of Tigray, the Tigaru people, will fight you for 6 days, 6 months, 6 years, 30 years, 1,000 years, 1,300 years for their self-determination. It's interesting to know that there were world leaders, particularly those even in the United States, that had early information about what was going on, what was taking place. And Abiy Ahmed assured them that this would just be a quick internal skirmish or situation that he would handle promptly. And some 8 months later, 237 days into this, we're seeing a turning of the tide. Where do we go from here? What do you see? Because Melete, you said it's not over. There's a reason to celebrate, but at the same time, where do you go from here as we begin to wrap this up? Because I want to remind folks that Mekelle, the capital city of the Tigaru people, has been liberated from their own government and a foreign government and militias that are a part of other states that have united to attack the Tigaru people. And I'm not talking about a conversation about soldiers fighting soldiers. I'm talking about soldiers fighting women and children, soldiers fighting the elderly, a battle being waged on the bodies of women, which is the signature of this particular genocide. Let us not forget, a genocide is taking place. We're not saying that a genocide is over, but we are saying that the fight is intensifying. And I believe the Tigaru people have come to the realization that the world is giving lip service, but they're not going to come in and do what they have to do for themselves, which is the hallmark of self-determination. Nobody's coming in to fight for you. They've written resolutions, they've sent thoughts and prayers, and maybe some wheat that never will get to you. And in the midst of that humanitarian support, the prime minister even will have and allow those who are providing the support to be killed and shot down for attempting to provide support. As we get ready to wrap things up, Melete, where do we go from here? What's your message to the Tigaru people and the world?
Well, I want to say a couple things, and maybe Andali can talk more about what's next, because I don't know what's next. I'm going to have all these different ideas and things I'd like to see, but I think it's going to be up to the Tigrayan people, and we're hearing them and seeing their reaction as TDF comes in to liberate the towns, and so it gives me an indication of what the people want. But the one thing that I do want to add, though, is this can't be over until Isaias Afwerki is held accountable. Now, I know there's all this hatred for what Abiy Ahmed did, because essentially he sold us to the devil, but the devil is Isaias Afwerki, and he has a personal vendetta and grudge with the Tigrayan people. And he made a boogeyman out of Tagaru in order to control his people in Eritrea. And so there's no way to finish this without dealing with Isaias Afwerki. And so I see that as being a natural part of like how this continues to progress in terms of TDF. You know, would they march into Asmara? I don't know, but there is. I heard from on the ground, from the streets, that there's question about who's in charge in Asmara, and so I'm careful to talk about that because Isaias Afwerki likes to play that game. He'll like disappear for a little while, make people think he's sick or something's going on when he's fine. They just like test reactions and things. He's done this over and over again, but currently there's some confusion or some speculation about where is Isaias Afwerki right now. And he's, by the way, he's got to be upset that Abiy is announcing this unilateral ceasefire. He's got to be. The other thing that I want to address is, you know, I'm trying to look at the comments here on the side, and there's someone who's saying, "Oh, I thought you guys were heroes. I thought you guys, you know, whatever." And you know, because we're not fully liberated yet. And I just want to point out that you have a nation of between 7 to 10 million people. There was no census done, so we don't know exactly how many people, who a little nation, a little state, who was fighting a country of 110 total people, 110 million people. All right. So you have that large federal force with all the financial backing, all the weaponry, all the equipment. You had Somali soldiers who were tricked and brought in to fight as well. You have a whole another country of Eritrea that came in. You have drones that were provided by the UAE to come in and demolish. You had Israeli surveillance that was used to identify where the weapon deposits were throughout Tigray. So you had 5 or 6 different countries fighting one little state. And it was interesting because you had really credible analysts even, or who I thought were very credible analysts, who were saying things like, well, okay, so perhaps Weyane or these guerrilla fighters were, you know, at one point they were this powerful people who could fight back, but now they're all geriatric and they're 60 and 70 years old. How are they going to fight? You know, what are they going to do? You know, that kind of conversation is what we were hearing in the beginning of this war, as if the people are not fighting for their existence, as if the people are just a select group of elites. What they didn't count on was that the entire state of Tigray would join together and be united and fight for their existence. And that's what they didn't count on. And so, you know, I'm watching this one guy and he's just spamming your comments or whatever. But that's my answer to him. You had this small state fighting 5 countries and they prevailed against all odds. None of us saw that happening. I didn't know that call was going to come, you know, today, that we were going to be talking about this today. It's been 8 months of hell. And here we are today, and we're celebrating. Even though, honestly, when we sit here and celebrate, because you should always celebrate freedom, but you know what I think about? I think about that 70-year-old mother that was raped. I think about the young kids whose limbs were cut off in this genocidal war. I think about the boys who were thrown over the cliff. I think about people who are starving right now as we have this conversation. So there's not a lot to celebrate in terms of where the state of Tigray is right now, but the people are prevailing. The people will win. And maybe Andale can say more about what he thinks is next for the Tagaru people, but it's a heavy day today, both good and bad.
And you know, Andale, as you get ready to make your final comments, I would like for you to also, because there are comments of folks saying things like, you all have the luxury of talking about this from the luxury and the comfort of your own homes. As you talk about the fighting of the Tigray Defense Force, Ndele also talk about the Tigray Diaspora forces and the roles that they have played in making this moment that we are talking about right now possible. The Tigray, the Tagaru Diaspora forces, because this is an international fight as well.
That's true, Brother Jeff. I mean, this is not like a one-sided shot, but, you know, the both sides. So I think the diaspora has a huge tap on the shoulder because, you know, even Abiy underestimate the Tigrayan population in Tigray, and those who are so-called Ethiopians in the diaspora underestimate the Tigrayan community, because they said if Abiy goes after them, nobody gonna say anything. Was a bad calculation. That's why they launched the war on the eve of the United States election, and now they have been doomed in their own election celebration because there's a phony election in Ethiopia, and then now all the what they call 50% of the population in Ethiopia cannot even vote, and then how it's going to be even free. Even Abiy was even humiliated when he was voting for that day with one journalist. He thought he was trying to brag, oh, they're free, and then she just jumped on him. Who's controlling Tigray? And then he got pissed off. Why you ask me all this? I mean, I hope you guys seen the video. So that's how the temper that he has. And then he got mad. He walked off before he even finished the conversation with the journalist. That shows you what's the next step, what they're going to do. Of course, we can cheer, we can celebrate, but we have to be very, suspicious about the situation too until we get a full grip of the Tigray region, when all the authorities, the leaders, the previous leaders get on the positions, make sure that all the civilians, the Tigrayans are being secured and saved. So I think we can talk about the next step. But right now, it is still an active war, because I'm not an expert on that, because I cannot, speculate. But all what I'm just giving you is what I'm hearing is there is 4 phases, but 1 phase is so far is about to complete. So they have a lot of huge work. So we just need to anticipate this is not only just military action, but it could be other diplomatic and PR and others. So that just shows you, because the weather of in Tigray and the Horn of Africa now is going to be even deeper to winter. So that's even kind of difficult for an actual physical face-to-face armed struggle. So the strategies has been debated. That's why they intensify this one more even quicker. As you can see, I don't know if Brother Jeff and Meliti, if you see the footage, some of the abandoned Ethiopian troops vehicle, it was all in the mud because they were stuck in there. They can't even move. So, but the Tigrayans, they move on blind face, even in the dark, because they know that's their neighborhood. But these troops, they just don't know what to do, so they give up. That's the same way on the future for the next 3 months. We still cannot, Malachi said in a good point too, with these 2 leaders, until for some time, we can't trust them. They can do anything. So we just need to look at and celebrate on the other side, but we still need to continue, Diaspora to continue to fight as we do, and then back home in Tigray do the same thing. But the victory is approaching. It won't be that long, like not 237 days from now on. But in the meantime, Brother Jeff, we have a lot of things to talk about. But Congress is going to do an event tomorrow, I believe. I'm so eager to see and to wait to hear what they're going to say. Hey, it's okay, 4 or 5, we need it, but TDF is back in Mekelle again. So, but I just wanted to see what the officials of the United States, elected officials, are going to say tomorrow. Other than that, the other part of Ethiopia, they will be barking, Debrecen die, Getachew die, so-and-so die. Whatever they're wishing, I don't know why they wish like that, but what are they going to say now? Some of them, they say it's not even true, and some of them, they say they show us the old troops. So they're making all this phony and fake news, but I think in their really throat, they're so hard to admit that they're weak. Even before, they did not know the heart and the beat of Tagaru people. They underestimate, but at the same time, they just wanted to be like, they don't want to admit how Tagarus are so strong. And they just united. They like 6 million people at the beginning of when Imperative took over. 6 million Tagarus. These populations shake the whole Ethiopia up and down. Man, Addis Ababa, where the AU's office is, they used to, throw all kind of, It was just, it's not even the capital city compared to most African countries.
Well, what I
Within
can
12 years, man, TPLF came over. Addis Ababa looks like New York.
Yeah, well, absolutely, you're absolutely true, and thank you for that history in Delhi. What today we're celebrating Operation Alula. I would like for you all to study Alula. I mean, if you think about a leader, you know, that went all the way up and defeated the Egyptians and represented, you know, the people of Tigray and the Ethiopian people. You know, it's in stark contrast of Menelik, who at the defeat of the Battle of Adwa, and by the way, Adwa is in Tigray. Menelik II went and all the way up to the Red Sea. You've got to remember, Eritrea means Red Sea in the Italian language. He's the one that gave that land and that watered area to the Italians. So you've got to be very careful of who you celebrate, fight with, and band together with, because in the end, they will partner with the very ones that set out to destroy you. And so Operation, or the Battle of Alula, we want to celebrate that. And one thing that I would like to celebrate right now is, I don't understand the intense hatred of Ethiopians within Ethiopia, so much so that they will celebrate a foreign government to come in and attack a portion of their body and then comment in celebration. Solomon, it was great meeting you and knowing you, but you get the wonderful opportunity to get blocked by Brother Jeff. Everybody who's been reading those Solomon comments, if you go to his page, there's only 2 or 3 people there. And one of those big pictures is one of Abiy Ahmed. I don't know how you celebrate someone who invites a foreign government into your land to attack your own people. If that's the type of hero you have, then you deserve that type of leadership. And so, Solomon, it was great hanging out with you. I'm glad you are gone. And I can tell you, there were those who have been saying that this genocide is fake news. No one is saying that anymore. Even the prime minister himself has admitted to rape, etc. And the people of Tigray have risen up and defended their own people, their own interests, their own property, lives, etc., and have taken back their capital city. I want to thank Indele, Maleti. I want to thank you all, and I just hope and pray that you will continue to have those glows, those smiles, and those moments of liberation. I will say, Tigray T Sir.
Can I say one more thing before
Please.
we go? I think it's important because you made a statement about the intense hate of Ethiopians, of other Ethiopians. And I think that's just an overly simplistic way to say it, because we keep ignoring the elephant in the room. And the elephant in the room is Amhara supremacy. And when you talk about hate, that's where it's coming from a lot of the time. It's from people who buy into that. It's like white supremacy here, but for us, it's a cultural supremacy. And that's where a lot of that hate comes from, where if you don't want to fold into my way of life, speak my language, follow, if I can't rule you, then you have a problem. You're a terrorist. You're this, you're that. So I want to be clear about that. When this genocide started, the first people in Ethiopia to speak up outside of Tigrayans and were the Oromos, were Oromo people. Now, granted, there are some who supported Abiy. There's a division in their community as well. However, it was Oromos who would inbox me or message me or ask questions and show up at our protests or offer ways to help. So, and in fact, today, the only Ethiopians who have messaged me to say, thank God, are Oromos, other Oromos, obviously outside of Tigrayans. So it's overly simplistic, and it's actually giving them a pass to say this is a problem within Ethiopia. It's a problem among certain groups who will then call you the tribalist because you don't want to fold into their beliefs of what an Ethiopian is, a very diverse country that colonized other Africans to create the borders that they have today. So I think that's important. The other thing that I want to point out before we go is there's been a lot of misinformation coming from the federal government, and they have been quiet today. they have been so quiet. I mean, I have been going and checking, the various accounts, those who haven't blocked me yet anyways, and trying to get information and see what their thoughts are, what their camp is thinking. And there was only a couple that I could get information from. And those couple were saying things like, you're bowing down to TPLF, like basically attacking Abiy Ahmed, saying you've bowed down to TPLF. And so we'll never forget this, or we'll never forgive you, like attacking him. Essentially, he's lost his, the pillars of hate are crumbling. And so, but the rest have been very, very, very quiet. And so that's also a very interesting thing to me. And then one thing for sure, Tigray is not out of the woods. I mean, yes, we're happy today. The people have gone outside. I mean, when people call you from the ground, and the things that they say are, we're outside, because they haven't been able to go outside of their homes for fear of being killed or raped or something horrific happening to them. For them to say we're outside, and for that to bring them the joy, is so, it's heartwarming. However, there's a long way to go in Tigray. And so we will keep watching that, and people will be held accountable. Once Tigray is liberated fully, there's a lot to account for. A lot of people will be held accountable. And so I look forward to that day of justice.
Well, it will happen. Like I said, Tigray Tisser, and I want to also let you know that it's spelled MERIHANDOM. It's very interesting. When I go to that particular page, it's only got 3 pictures, and one of them says "Protect Eritrean Refugees," and it has an Eritrean flag. I don't understand how someone who can talk about the atrocities that are taking place under Isaias Afwerki has the nerve to ask how much is the TPLF paying us. And for that and your little 3 images on your page, I think that's going to earn you a block also. So we don't have to worry about that. My block game is getting tighter every day. 237 days into the genocide. I have no patience for those who say anything except genocide is never a good thing. I don't want to hear anything about anything except genocide is not acceptable. Rape is not acceptable. Starvation is not acceptable. Targeting civilians is not acceptable. And if you think that those activities are acceptable for some reason, then if you raise your head on this platform, all I'm going to do is block you, because it's 237 days. Shout out to the TDF, those who are fighting on the ground in Tigray, and the TDF, the Tigray Diaspora forces. It's a big day. We just wanted to step in for just a moment and let you know that your work is not in vain. Your voices are raising, and you, if you're hearing this, talk to someone in your sphere of influence and say, stop the genocide in Tigray. Thank you both, and I will look for you tomorrow for an update as it relates to the world response. And again, I'm still attempting to hear which foreign leaders are going to clap, celebrate, and congratulate Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed on a successful democratic election. I want to hear that hypocrisy flow from someone's mouth. And I want to hear those around the world who are saying congratulations to the people of Tigray for standing up and defending your right to exist, self-determination, and taking it upon yourself to do what many around the world would not do. Thank you all so very much. And Tigray to sir. There it is, you all. A big day, a very big day. And I'm going to go ahead and leave once again with images of the celebration taking place, showing that your voices are appreciated, needed, and your struggle on behalf of the Tagaru people is yielding results. And for those of you who believe that an election is taking place in Ethiopia, you're not seeing an election. You're seeing the deterioration of a budding democracy that decided to go into partnership with a dictator by the name of Isaias Afwerki. So stop the genocide in Tigray. 237 days is too long. The fight is not over, but there is light, and it should be celebrated as Mekelle has been regained by the Tagaru people.